Welcome to Fast Pace, the new growth, leadership and management podcast featuring Josh Phegan and Dean Mackie. We wanted to peel back the layers on what happens in the world of fast-paced real estate agencies, from new leadership models to the management challenges we all face each day. This is about a new era in the estate agency sector. Rapid changes to business models, service lines, remuneration and growth present the greatest opportunities that we've ever seen. Sit back, get inspired, grow your skills and reimagine what's possible with Fast Pace. Every Friday, wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Josh Phegan Digital.
Dean, one of the biggest things I ever see in business is people just making it so complicated about how their business works. They're chasing a million and one things. They're not clear about strategy. They're in a position that ultimately it's just a really hard place to get your head around. Dean, what I really love is I love businesses that are super simple. They literally just get it. They don't want too much complication in their business. They just want to do the basics and do the basics really well. You've been through a lot of this. What do you think actually creates simplicity? Is it actually harder initially to be simple, or is this something that ultimately you can breed into your business philosophy from day one?
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Look, I think our industry is quite tricky. You know, it's an increasingly complex nature of, I think, the real estate market. I think for people, they find it quite complex. And it challenges, both agents and our clients. Like if the market's changing, I think there are lots of agents that go, oh God, they don't realise the strategy that they had before in a certain type of market is not going to work in the current market. So you've got to keep things really simple. I had a meeting today, a coaching session, and, we were talking about buyers and buyer management, right? And right now, that's a really important thing. And the truth is, I think that we've had a lot of agents in recent times that have been able to just, list a property, get it up onto the portals, and the rest sort of can take care of itself. And, that can breed a little bit of, let's not call it laziness, but let's just say fortuitous that, we can get paid a decent check at the end of a 6-week period for doing that. Yeah, but if you then break it down and go, well, if we're thinking about a normal real estate market, what are all the basic fundamentals that you need to do to hand on heart know that you've done everything in your power to deliver your vendor the best possible price in today's market? And buyers are incredible because they're just like gold, right? That's like a river of gold going past my desk every day, and it's just up to me to reach in and deal with them. And we've simplified it in our business. Like we have AI dealing with a lot of things. We have AI creating call lists. We're doing all of this stuff, right, to help agents be more effective. And 60% of buyers that we meet, if we start the buyer conversation, are actually sellers too. Mm-hmm. But perhaps I know for a fact that the guy I was meeting with this morning, he's not doing his calls up and down the street to invite buyers to the open, right? He's not really going through the database of extensive high intent buyers we've got. I had a look at some numbers the other day, Josh, and of the last 25 sales that we made, every single buyer that bought through us is already in our system. Mm-hmm. Right, so the gold's already there. It's just a matter of, as an agent, are you prepared to go in and make sure you've got all the buyer requirements in? Are you doing all that sort of stuff? Are you making sure you're qualifying buyers properly? Doing all those basics, right? It's a simple thing, right? But we can tend to look for shortcuts or overcomplicate it or think, oh no, I've got to do all these other things to find a buyer. But the truth is, in the case I just gave you, every single buyer. So the report I ran was for a particular office, and I basically said, give me everything we've got at the moment from exchange that's due to settle. Mm-hmm. And as I said, every buyer we already knew. So I look at it and go, you know what, we can overcomplicate this or we can make it really simple, right? And I think the trick is using data and information to realize how simple you can make it. Like if we didn't go in and say, of those last 25 sales, how many of those buyers we knew, well, we wouldn't know that, right? We'd think that we've got to go everywhere else to find where a buyer is, but often it's right under your nose. And you already know these people. It's just a matter of finding them and getting them to the property. Yeah. And there are ways in which you can do that quite intelligently these days without just listing it on a portal, hoping that they're going to turn up. So I think that we've got an overwhelmed consumer who's got like so much information available to them. They've got so much decision fatigue can happen for a buyer, right, and for a vendor too. Like what do they do? How do I do it? Because there's so much information that can be quite complex. And I think everybody's got this desire for simplicity. So how do you help people make it easier to make decisions? I think that's the first part. How do you make it really simple to get people to make a decision, right? And then how do you potentially make it, provide a much more streamlined approach to finding a buyer? That's hot, that we know that what are they looking for? what's the context, where are they looking, and just be really high intent on how we go about them, because it's too easy to overlook what's right there in front of you.
Yeah, there's a great old school saying: to win a Formula One, first you got to stay on the track, and then second you got to be the fastest driver out there. But if you don't stay on the track, doesn't matter, you're gone. And then you got to be the fastest when you are staying on the track. So I think, okay, you know what? You can't be great in business if you're not listing. And then if you're not selling them, that's the problem. Right? So like literally you're always playing that game. And so how do I literally get Dean, Mackie energized and focused to say, okay, great, in my personal team, how does simplicity look? You know what, Dino? We need to get 10 market appraisals to pick up your 4 listing prezos, to win you the 3, to sell you the 2 every month. That's just how your little business works. It's small, and let's just do that, man. And write up the list. 10, great, you got 1. 9 more to go, mate. And get competitive again about the core of the numbers. And this is the interesting thing when you're talking about influence, right? I did this list the other day and I go, I reckon I'm at best face-to-face. After that, it's phone. After that, it's FaceTime. Bit weird, but couples do it, so stick with me. Outside of that, then I go to voice notes because it can give emotional context. Not that huge in Australia, but massive in other markets. SMS, and then I go to email. So when I say to you, hey, Dino, we've just got a new buyer that's just actually going to come into the marketplace, what do we do with that buyer to build relationship? You get them down to a face-to-face appointment, you'll probably get an offer and you'll close it. You're in a position where most agents are doing, hey, I've got a new listing, let's blast out an SMS, let's blast out an email, as opposed to who could I also ring that goes to show through your intent data in your world, or in less sophisticated businesses that, okay, great, well, you know what, Jones Street, similar listing, same buyers would have walked through that 3 months ago. Let's just pick up the phone and ring him. Hey, Dean, came through Jones Street. Did you still have an appetite to buy? Got a cracker in Smith Street. Would you like to look at that?
Spot on.
Like, could it be that simple?
Yeah, it can be. And this is the thing, everyone's got a degree of sophistication or not, right? So whatever the tools are at your disposal, just work out how to best use them. And I think that, and you talk about high intent call lists, we're building out automated sales processes at the moment. Like for example, it's pretty simple, but, REA, for example, and they have the ability to bump up listings at a certain part of the campaigns, but most agents forget about it because they haven't created a process to go at that point in time in the campaign, I can bump it back to the top of the list, right? So I think that everything through your business, if you can work out what's the simplest way to get the best possible outcome, and just make sure you've got a process in place that makes it repeatable and automatic so you don't have to stress about it. So then that way what you're doing is, you're creating a much better way to get a better result for the customer, which means you got a happier customer. And then you're effectively creating efficiency for yourself to get better outcomes so you can get higher cadence and get more volume, right? So I think wherever you can sort of go, what works for me with the tools I've got available to help me do a better job, then you're there. Because, if you've got reduced errors, reduced mistakes, you've got a really compliant business, it's giving the customer a better result, and you effectively are not having to stress so much, you're going to be getting a much better result. So, like I was thinking, if you think about this as a concept and you go, well, what's simplicity? Well, we knew in, say, property management that our tenants were being quite frustrated because they couldn't get repairs and maintenance done on time. Mm-hmm. And we've spoken about this before, but it's because, you've got a property manager having to do so many tasks, right? And then often that request can get buried, or it can have to go backwards and forwards to the landlord. So we went, well, we've got a pretty substantial rent roll, right? Isn't it worth our while to invest in how do we make that simple? Two fronts. One is how do we make the role simpler for the property manager so that they can focus more on the landlord and all those things? And perhaps we strip out this tenancy piece and say, well, how can we get some really simple technology and workflow that allows the tenant to self-serve a lot on a lot of that maintenance? And when in fact we have a tenancy concierge team that they can ring directly, bang, 3 rings, they pick up the phone, or our tenancy concierge can call them and get the matter resolved really quickly. Now, that's a really simple thing, right? But it wasn't, we didn't really become abundantly clear to us that was a way to go, because we hadn't tried to go, well, how do we simplify this? How do we make the job better for a property manager so they can be more effective? Yeah. And how do we actually give the tenant a better experience? So I think if you just constantly go through that lens of like, okay, where are the friction points here? How can we make this better? How can we get a better outcome? Then, you're 99% the way there.
Really simple thing to do. Draw up a nice little T-chart. What works, what doesn't. Anything that doesn't work, how do you make it simpler, better, faster to actually literally get the result that you need? If you pull out all the complexity, you get a much better business.